The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Sarah Martinez's small apartment, casting gentle shadows across the worn linoleum floor. She stood before her bedroom mirror, carefully applying the last touch of lipstick she had saved for special occasions. Today was her sister Eleanor's wedding day, and despite everything that had happened between them over the years, Sarah wanted to look her best. Her 8-year-old daughter Lily sat on the edge of the bed, swinging her legs, as she watched her mother get ready. The little girl wore a simple yellow dress that Sarah had found at a thrift store and carefully altered to fit perfectly. It wasn't expensive, but Lily looked beautiful in it, her dark hair braided with a small ribbon that matched the dress. "Mama, do you think Aunt Elena will be happy to see us?" Lily asked, her innocent eyes reflecting the uncertainty that had been growing in Sarah's heart all week. Sarah paused, her hand holding the lipstick tube, trembling slightly. She had been asking herself the same question ever since she received Elena's wedding invitation 3 weeks ago. The invitation had arrived without a personal note, just her name printed in elegant script alongside hundreds of others. No phone call, no warm message, just cold formality. "Of course, sweetheart," Sarah said, forcing a smile. "We're family." But even as she spoke the words, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Eleanor had always been the successful one, the one who went to college, who married well the first time, who lived in the big house in the suburbs. Sarah, on the other hand, had struggled since her divorce 2 years ago, working double shifts at the diner just to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. The drive to the church took 45 minutes in Sarah's old Honda, which made concerning noises every time she pressed the accelerator too hard. Lily chatted excitedly about seeing her cousins and about the wedding cake she hoped would have chocolate layers. Sarah listened, trying to push away the growing knot in her stomach. The church was magnificent, with tall white columns and stained glass windows that caught the afternoon light like jewels. Cars lined the street, expensive sedans and SUVs that made Sarah's Honda look even more beaten up than usual. She parked 3 blocks away, and she and Lily walked hand in hand toward the entrance. Inside, the church buzzed with conversation and laughter. Sarah recognized many faces from family gatherings years ago, but noticed how conversations seemed to pause when people saw her. She smoothed down her simple black dress, suddenly very aware that it was the same one she had worn to job interviews and school conferences. It was her only good dress. Elena stood near the altar in a stunning white gown that probably cost more than Sarah made in 6 months. She was surrounded by bridesmaids in pale pink dresses, all of them laughing at something. The maid of honor had said. When Elena's eyes met Sarah's across the church, her smile faltered for just a moment before she looked away. Sarah found 2 empty seats near the back and settled in with Lily, who was wide-eyed at the beauty of the decorations. White roses and baby's breath adorned every pew, and candles flickered along the altar. It truly was a fairy tale wedding. The ceremony was beautiful. Elena looked radiant as she exchanged vows with Michael, a successful lawyer who owned his own practice. Sarah felt a mixture of happiness for her sister and a deep sadness for the distance that had grown between them over the years. She remembered, when they were children, sharing secrets and dreams in the bedroom they once shared. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception hall next door. The room was decorated in gold and white, with crystal chandeliers casting warm light over round tables covered in silk linens. Sarah checked the seating chart and found their names at table 12, far in the back corner, away from the family tables near the front. As they made their way to their table, Sarah heard her name called sharply. She turned to see Elena approaching, her face flushed with what Sarah hoped was just excitement from the day. "Sarah," Elena said, her voice tight, "I need to speak with you." Sarah felt Lily's hand tighten in hers. "Of course. Congratulations, Elena. The ceremony was beautiful. Elena glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. "I need you to leave." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. "What do you heard me? I need you and Lily to leave now." Sarah stared at her sister, unable to process what she was hearing. "Elena, what are you talking about? We're your family." "Look at yourself, Sarah," Elena hissed, her voice barely above a whisper but sharp enough to cut. "Look at that dress. Look at your shoes. Michael's family is here, important people from his firm. I can't have you embarrassing me." The room seemed to spin around Sarah. She felt Lily press closer to her side, and she realized her daughter had heard every word. The shame that washed over her was overwhelming, not for herself, but for the fact that Lily was witnessing this cruelty. "Elena, please," Sarah whispered. "I know we don't have much, but we're still sisters. I just wanted to celebrate with you." "You should have thought about that before you made such a mess of your life," Elena replied coldly. "The divorce, the struggle, barely making ends meet. I've worked too hard to get where I am, to have it all ruined by association." Other guests were beginning to notice the tense conversation. Sarah felt dozens of eyes on her, and she knew her face was burning with humiliation. She looked down at Lily, whose eyes were filling with tears, and knew she had to protect her daughter from any more of this. "Fine," Sarah said quietly. "We'll go." She turned toward the exit, her vision blurred with unshed tears, when a deep voice spoke behind her. "Excuse me, ladies." Sarah turned to see a man in an impeccably tailored suit approaching them. He was tall, with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. She didn't recognize him, but he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to respect. "I couldn't help but overhear," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "And I have to say, I'm appalled by what I just witnessed." Eleanor's face went pale. "Sir, this is a private family matter." The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Actually, it's not entirely private when it happens in front of half the wedding guests." He turned to Sarah. "I'm James Mitchell. I'm Michael's business partner." Sarah's heart sank further. If this man was connected to the groom's business, Elena's humiliation of her would be even more public. But James surprised her by extending his hand to Sarah with genuine warmth. "I have to tell you, Mom, that your sister's behavior is not a reflection of the kind of people Michael and I associate with in business or in life." He knelt down to Lily's level. "And you, young lady, look absolutely beautiful in that yellow dress. It reminds me of sunshine." Lily managed a small smile through her tears. James stood and addressed Eleanor directly. "I've been in business with Michael for 5 years, and I can tell you that character matters more than appearances. What I just witnessed tells me everything I need to know about yours." He turned back to Sarah. "Would you and your daughter do me the honor of being my guest today? I have a table right up front, and I'd much rather spend the afternoon with people who understand the value of family than with those who've forgotten it." Elena looked mortified. "Mr. Mitchell, I can explain." "No explanation necessary," James said firmly. "Your actions spoke clearly enough." He offered his arm to Sarah. "Shall we?" Sarah hesitated, overwhelmed by this stranger's kindness. "Sir, you don't have to do this." "Actually, I do," James said softly. "My wife passed away 3 years ago, and she always reminded me that how we treat others, especially when they're vulnerable, defines who we really are. She would never forgive me if I walked away from this." As they walked toward the front of the reception hall, James leaned down to speak quietly to Sarah. "For what it's worth, I think you're raising a remarkable daughter. The way she held your hand through all of that, the way she tried to comfort you, that doesn't happen by accident. That's good parenting." Sarah felt tears finally spill over, but these were different tears. These were tears of gratitude and relief. They spent the rest of the evening at James's table, where he introduced Sarah and Lily to Michael's parents, who were horrified when they learned what had happened. Lily charmed everyone with her bright personality, and Sarah found herself relaxing for the first time in months. As the evening wound down, James walked them to their car. "Sarah, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what kind of work do you do?" "I'm a waitress at Danny's Diner downtown," Sarah said, suddenly embarrassed again. "Actually, I was wondering if you might be interested in something different. My company is looking for someone to manage our employee relations department. It's about connecting with people, understanding their needs, making sure they feel valued. After tonight, I can't think of anyone more qualified." Sarah stared at him in shock. "Mr. Mitchell, I don't have a college degree." "Sometimes life experience is more valuable than any degree," James said with a smile. "Think about it. Call me next week." 6 months later, Sarah sat in her new office, looking out at the city skyline. The job had changed everything for her. And Lily. They had moved to a better apartment. Lily was thriving in her new school, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt like she could breathe. Elena had called twice, both times to apologize. Sarah had forgiven her sister because holding on to anger was too heavy a burden to carry, but their relationship would never be the same. James had become more than just her boss. He had become a mentor, and slowly, carefully, something more. He never rushed, never pressured, always mindful of the fact that Sarah was still healing from everything she had been through. On a quiet Friday evening, as Sarah prepared to leave the office, she thought about that terrible day at the wedding. How Elena's cruelty had felt like the end of the world. How she had never imagined that such pain could lead to such unexpected blessings. Sometimes, she realized, angels came in the form of strangers who chose kindness when they could have chosen indifference. Sometimes, the worst moments in life were actually doorways to the best ones. And sometimes, just sometimes, the family you choose is more valuable than the family you're born into.